Pretty cool thing I wanted to ask you about is the everyday calendar that you worked on.
Mm-hmm.
That was a long time. That took a long time.
Yeah. So basically, I designed this calendar. Like, I wanted to start meditating every day,
Mm-hmm.
but it's really hard to meditate every day and to like kind of build that habit. And what I would do is I would make these grids in my notebooks where I could like check a box for every day. Like, I just wanted like a little ding, I did it, and like this thing of accountability. But then I was like, I don't want to have a notebook that I do this in. Like, I want an art piece that I can hang on my wall, like accountability art. And I made this thing called the Everyday Calendar, which has an entire year on it. So it's 365 days. And if you tap any of the days, you light it up.
Mm.
And we turned it into a Kickstarter campaign. And it's now a product that I'm selling through my product business, the Yetch Store.
What's it called?
The Yetch Store.
Yeah. And that, for people who are confused, is the right way to pronounce your last name.
Which does it. It's right, but it's so wrong. It makes my last name is spelled Giertz.
Who does that song? If loving you is wrong, I don't want to be right.
Yeah,
This-
pronouncing my last name. Yeah,
That's what makes me think. Because what's his name? The from the Office, he covers it. From the British Office, which is the better office. Okay. Tangent upon a tangent upon a tangent. So you said you created the everyday calendar to make a more beautiful, in quotes, and more sacred goal star system on a wall, not a notebook that gets thrown into a drawer.
Yeah. Wow. Well said, past me.
You said that making this calendar taught you a lot, in quotes. I feel like a real investigative journalist. You've said in 2018.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the gotcha.
Can you share some of the lessons you've learned? Like, what do you mean you've learned a lot from making this calendar? Like, what are we talking about?
As somebody who builds things, manufacturing something is such an unrelated process. Like making one of something and making 10,000s of something, like they're not even distant cousins. Like it's completely different beasts to tackle. And yeah, so that was one of it. Everything takes so much longer than you think it's going to. I did a Kickstarter campaign that we launched in 2018 after my surgery. And yeah, it's just, you think you're so generous with the timelines. We still ended up being a year late, but we shipped. We're good. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to get my product business off the ground. We launched in May. And it's just a pain. As somebody who's terrified of disappointing people, I'm like, why have I chosen some of the jobs where it's the easiest to disappoint people?
You can disappoint people at scale now.
Yeah, I can disappoint people at scale, and also them actually haven't paid me money to deliver on something, which is a terrible transaction. But I'm just stoked to realize that I love the job still. Like, I love the product development aspect of it. I love trying to design stuff for manufacturing and figure it out and like anticipate how people are going to use your products. And like the everyday calendar, I mean, we've sold thousands of them now. They're all over the world. And it's like people actually finding something useful that I made and implementing them into their lives. It's just mind-boggling.
Especially because this is tracking habits, good habits.
So or bad ones. You can do it wherever. You can use it however you want.
I went in a drinking binge again today.
Yeah.
Success. Great
Kicked
success.
Another kid.
What does it take to mass manufacture something? What did you learn about that? Like, can you like elucidate the gap between the prototype versus the like product development for mass manufacture?
I mean, for one of it is like, yeah, the manufacturing, the tooling that they use in manufacturing and to do things in a cost-effective way is really different. Like I can make a one-off, then it's going to take me 17 hours, but obviously you can't spend 17 hours per calendar when you're doing something in factory. I think it's that like quality control is such a beast. You cannot trust anybody telling you that things are going to be okay. Like you have to have such trust issues. And it's also terrifying. I mean, as somebody who's doing everything independently, I haven't raised any capital for it. Like it's all self-invested and we're doing it all in-house. It's just, yeah, I could buy 10,000 calendars, but then what if all of them have a manufacturing issue? Or, it's just terrifying because the risks are so high, but also I got to this point where, for one, this is something that I wanted to do for a long time, but something that going through health problems taught me is how fragile my business model is. Because, I mean, I'm basically running an influencer business where I make videos on YouTube and then I have an ad spot and I talk about a brand. So, like, I'm a human billboard, which is fine. It grants me a lot of freedom to play around. But if I am not well enough to be on a stage giving talks or be in front of a camera, everything stops. Like, it's such a pillar of a business and it can topple over at any given moment. Or like YouTube could change the algorithm, like legislation could catch up and change how you're able to advertise on the internet. Like, it's so frail. And I really felt like I need to diversify what I'm doing and also just to keep it interesting for myself. So what I decided was to start a product business because also it's kind of this perfect combination of businesses where I can turn my YouTube channel into an R&D department because I have a reason to constantly be exploring things and churning out new products. I can also do that as early audience testing and see what people are actually excited about. And if there's something that I think would make an interesting product, I can pass that over to the product business. And then once I'm ready to market that and sell it, I can pass it over to the YouTube channel. So it's like I can kind of, once I realized that YouTube didn't feel like an end goal for me, I was like, okay, then I can use it as a tool to accomplish these other things that I want to do. And this was one of them. So yeah, it's a lot that went into it.
And one of the tools, like you said, is R&D, but it's also kind of advertisement for the cool
Mhm.
stuff that you're doing. I think Mr. Beast is one of the creators that's also starting to understand this power
Mhm.
of this reputation that you've built, of like people trust you, like they love you to do cool stuff. They trust that you put your heart and soul into a thing. And
Yeah.
so like, and they feel your pain and the struggle too, like if a product, like for example, say the everyday calendar, like there was issues in manufacturing, something like this, they
Which
would,
we've had. Yeah.
they would feel the pain of that and they would still support it. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
beauty of it when you have the actual person right there struggling with their lows and highs.
That's a decision that I made really early on where I was like, the Yetch store is supported by me, but it's separate from me. It's not merchandise. You don't have to know who I am or care about who I am to be interested in this product. And if you go on the website, Yetch.store, plug. It's like, if I'm on the about page, YETCH.store, like, you have to go to the about page to find anything about me. Like, it's definitely not like this is Simone's brand. And I think anybody who's followed me for a long time will see that like my personality is sprinkled into it, but it's still like clean off of me. And I think that's also because I wanted something that was separate from me because I am also running out of narcissism, believe it or not. I'm like, I don't feel
Yeah.
like I don't want it to be about me. And I want it to be something that can also run independently of me and doesn't like I want to be able to retire my face and still do like the other stuff because I think it's fun, but I don't want that to be the core of it.
What other kind of stuff have you worked on for the product design for Yetch?
So, I mean, a lot of the products, I decided to launch the store with a really small roster of products because developing products is it's such upfront heavy, like cost-wise and
Mhm.
just investment. It's very big upfront investment. So, and I know that it would take a while, or I knew it would take a while for me to kind of find the right tonality and visual language for the brand. So I just wanted to launch it, have it be out there, start working on it, start like learning more about what it entails, even if we just had a small roster of products. So we released it we have a puzzle. This
Yes.
is just a whim. But I wanted to release a puzzle that has one piece missing. So it's actually, as far as I can tell, it's the world's first officially incomplete puzzle. You get 499 out of 500 pieces. I keep the 500th piece. So I have a box in my workshop with everybody's missing pieces.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do with it yet, but someday it will come to me.
Profound artistic statement.
It is something. It's definitely something, and I'm surprised by how many of them we've sold, which I'm also like I kind of wanted to have that product out there because I was like, "Can you imagine having a pitch deck if I do ever raise money of being like, you know how good I am at selling things? I sold people 5,000 incomplete puzzles."
Incomplete puzzles.
Yeah. Also have it's like a lot of the products, I call them basket fillers. Like they're kind of just like stuff where I'm like, yeah, this is like easy to throw into your basket. I mean, we have these rings. I'm wearing them. So there's a screwdriver ring, which is a Phillips head screwdriver, and then a screw ring that kind of has a recess like a Phillips head screw. I have these sawdust socks that make you look like your feet are covered in sawdust, like you spent all day in the shop without having to put any of the actual effort in. But then we have 4 more products in the pipeline that we're working on and that are kind of the big ambitious products that are more in line with what I want the brand to be. Like the tagline is unique solutions to everyday problems. And it's just a lot of like trying to develop novel takes on existing products.
So something where the function becomes a bigger part of the
Mhm.
design.
Yeah.
And so what's the process of creating something like that? Like even the everyday calendar. So like what are some challenges that are interesting along the way? So you have to sketch it out. You have to like brainstorm, draw things out, and then create a schematic and see like
Mhm.
how do you know what it's going to look like visually?
Don't.
Yeah.
And so the everyday calendar, so I just built it for myself first. Like that did not come as a product idea first. And that's kind of been the process that I've had for a lot of things. Like I make it for myself and then I'm like, oh, maybe other people would find this useful too. So the everyday calendar, the first prototype I made, it had actually physical mechanical toggle switches. So 365 toggle switches that you could flip. So if you worked out that day or meditated, for me, it was meditating, you could just flip that switch. And that was great. But when I started evaluating it as a product, it's if you have 365 of something in a product, like the runaway cost is crazy. So the cheapest option, most reliable option we could find was capacitive touch. So basically it's a touch interface and the front plate is a circuit board itself. So it's this like circuit board that's designed in this really fancy way. So it looks like a beautiful piece of art, not to toot my own horn too much. But it's actually a circuit board, which I also thought was really interesting of like using this that people usually hide away in products. And it felt like a nod to my career in electronics as well, of being like, no, let's make it pretty and let's put it front and forward. But yeah, I mean, what I'm realizing now more and more is like there's so many of like I would love to turn the puzzle table into a product. But then it's like that would be a $7,000 table.
Yeah.
And I don't want to sell a table for $7,000. So you're kind of limited to the price bracket you're in. And it's like your margins are tough. Like maintaining your margins are really, really tough. And as somebody who's like, I would love to sell the stuff that we're doing cheaper, but it's just not feasible. Like you need those margins to survive. And
Well, one of the genius things in the conversations I've had with Elon is the ability through sort of systematic questioning of how things have been done in the past to discuss what is the lowest cost way to solve a problem. And so he's very good at getting to, like with Optimus Robot, for example, the humanoid robot, how do you get the cost down?
yeah.
And that seems to be like one of the essential things to do in any product that you have to mass manufacture. Is constantly discussed, like how do we simplify
It's definitely a design limitation that's interesting. It's both hard and interesting to work within. And that's such a different thing as well. It's like, as I talked about before, like what is the context in which you're creating things? Like I'm still building things, I'm still inventing things, but I changed the context and it has a very different set of limitations. And constantly trying to simplify your product to make it cheaper. And yeah, it's a really interesting and different type of design process.
You can lose some of the magic though, right? Like people can do that a little bit too much. I think Apple is famous, like Johnny Ive is famous for sort of focusing on design first and not worrying about the cost later because you don't want to sacrifice. There's some stuff that's going to cost more, but it keeps
Yeah.
some of the magic.
I think it's for some of the products that we're working on, it's like, I'm like, let's just make it the best we think it can be, and then we can scale back from there. Like, just like, let's not impose these limitations on ourselves up front. Like, let's just make it the most beautiful version of itself, and then we can decide what we want to compromise with
Mhm.
or compromise on. Yeah.
That's what I say every day when I look in the mirror. Let's just
Yeah,
make the
let's
most
make it
beautiful.
beautiful. And then we can compromise. Yeah.
We'll just
So you
discuss
put
how it
on
goes
that
wrong.
suit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then see how shit goes wrong later.